I guess I should start by saying I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Jake, and my wife, Amanda, was the love of my life, or so I thought. We've been married for 5 years, and there were always signs that everything might not be as perfect as I wanted to believe. You know how it is, right? The little things that you try to brush off as nothing. Late nights at the office, sudden changes in mood, the way she would sometimes stare at her phone with a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. At first, I chalked it up to the stresses of life. We both worked demanding jobs, myself in finance and her as a marketing executive. But then it started to escalate. Amanda began spending more time with friends, sometimes coming home later than expected, claiming they had work events or girls' nights. I tried to be supportive, but the nagging doubt crept in. It was the kind of doubt that gnawed at you, keeping you up late at night. Then, about 6 months ago, I caught her in a lie. We had a dinner party planned with a few couples from our neighborhood. Amanda was all hyped up about it, but when I asked about her day, she seemed distant. "Oh, just a boring day at work," she said while nervously scrolling through her phone. As the evening rolled around, I overheard her on the phone in the other room, whispering in a tone that felt too intimate for a casual conversation. I couldn't catch all the words, but I distinctly heard her giggle, and that feeling in my gut grew stronger. The real discovery came a few weeks later. I was working from home one Friday, and Amanda was supposed to be at a team retreat. I thought I would surprise her by cleaning up around the house, you know, romantic husband stuff. As I was going through some drawers looking for a cleaning cloth, I stumbled upon a small piece of paper tucked away in her nightstand. It was a receipt from a fancy restaurant downtown, one we've never been to together. My heart raced as I saw that the date on it was from the previous week. She had claimed to be working late that night. I confronted her when she got home. I could see the color drain from her face as I held up the receipt, my voice shaking with anger. "Amanda, what's this?" I demanded. Instead of owning up, she spun a web of lies, trying to convince me that it was a work dinner she forgot to mention. She was good at lying, I'll give her that. She had the kind of charm that could convince anyone of anything, but the way she struggled to keep eye contact told me everything. The confrontation spiraled into chaos. I yelled, she cried, and we both blamed each other for our problems. She played the victim, insisting I was overreacting, that I was imagining things because of stress. I felt like I was losing my mind. The emotional roller coaster that followed was brutal. I went from shock to anger to deep sadness in a matter of minutes, realizing this wasn't just about one night. It was about trust being shattered. There I was, the fool, believing in a perfect marriage, only to discover I was living in a lie. As days turned into weeks, I began to process what had happened. The anger felt like a fire burning inside me, and I knew I had to make a decision on how to move forward. It was a dark place to be, torn between wanting to salvage what we had and the urge to seek revenge for the betrayal. But revenge isn't something I wanted to dwell on just yet. I needed clarity. What did I truly want from all of this? As I sat there, wrestling with the whirlwind of emotions, I knew I had to gather my thoughts and make a plan. I spent hours replaying the confrontation in my mind, dissecting every word Amanda had said. The lies flowed so easily from her lips and they stung like venom. I couldn't let her continue to poison me with her deceit. It was time to take control of the situation, and I realized that I needed to gather more evidence before deciding what to do. The first step was to observe her behavior more closely. I became an unintentional detective, watching her like a hawk. I started taking note of her routines, the times she left for work, and how late she returned home. Amanda had become more secretive, her phone now an extension of her hip, often turning it face down whenever she set it down. I could tell she was hiding something, and the anxiety of not knowing gnawed at me. One evening, I decided to go for a run. It was a way to clear my head, but also to give Amanda space to do whatever it was she was doing without me. As I ran past a local cafe, I noticed her car parked outside. My heart raced as I approached the window. There she was, sitting across from a guy I'd never seen before, laughing in a way that felt too intimate. She leaned in closer to him, and I could see her hand resting on his arm. That stinging sensation returned, sharper this time, and I had to fight the urge to storm in there and confront her. Instead, I turned on my heel and ran home, my mind racing. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't just a dinner with a colleague or a harmless drink with friends. It was an affair. The betrayal felt like a dagger in my side, twisting deeper with every thought. I needed proof, something solid that I could confront her with, something that would leave no room for denial. Next day, I decided to take a day off work. I crafted a plan. I would follow Amanda, see where she went, and document everything. It felt like a scene from a movie, but I couldn't help but feel a rush of adrenaline. I parked a few blocks away from our house, waiting for her to leave. Around noon, she stepped outside, dressed casually but with an unmistakable air of confidence. I followed her discreetly, maintaining a safe distance as she drove to a nearby park. My pulse quickened, not just from the thrill but from the sinking realization that this was real. She pulled into a lot and parked, and I watched from a distance. After a few minutes, the same guy from the cafe arrived. They embraced like old friends, and I felt my stomach twist. I couldn't keep watching. My heart felt heavy in my chest. I had to know what they were saying. I crept closer, hiding behind a tree while I tried to make sense of the situation. They laughed and exchanged whispers, and for a moment I thought I might go insane with frustration. I pulled out my phone and began recording, my hands shaking as I captured the betrayal unfolding right before me. As I documented the scene, I felt a mix of anger and sadness bubbling inside me. I thought about everything we had shared, all the dreams we had built together, and how easily she tossed them aside. It was infuriating. Somewhere deep down, I knew I deserved better, but the psychological torment of loving someone who was cheating on you is a vicious cycle. After about an hour, they finally separated, Amanda heading back to her car. I followed her back home, my mind racing with thoughts of how to confront her again. This time it would be different. I had proof, and I was ready to lay it all out on the table. But as I sat in my car watching her walk inside, I realized I had to brace myself for her reaction. Would she double down on the lies, or would she finally break down and admit the truth? The thought of the confrontation sent chills down my spine. I was prepared for war, but I also wondered how much more I could take. As night fell, I made my way home, my heart heavy with dread. I knew I was about to step into the biggest confrontation of my life. I had become a prisoner of my own thoughts, trapped between anger and heartbreak, and I was ready to unleash my fury. The moment she walked through the door, I knew the time had come. Would the truth set me free, or would it bind us both in a web of lies for just a little longer? The atmosphere in our home was thick with tension as Amanda walked through the door. I stood in the living room, heart pounding like a drum, the evidence of her betrayal still fresh in my mind. I had been preparing for this moment all day, rehearsing every line I could throw at her. I wanted to make her feel the weight of her actions, to understand the depths of the hurt she caused me. "Hey, babe, I'm back," she called out, her voice cheerful as if nothing was wrong. I could hear the faint sound of her keys jingling as she tossed them onto the table. It was infuriating, the casual ease with which she moved through our home, a stark contrast to the turmoil I was feeling inside. I turned to face her, the dam of emotions ready to burst forth. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The moment hung between us, and I could see the smile fade from her face as she registered the seriousness in my tone. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. The act was pathetic, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger at her audacity. "I saw you today," I said, my voice low but firm. I stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking as the tension escalated. "With him, the guy from the cafe, don't even try to deny it." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed to be at a loss for words. I watched as her mind raced, calculating the best way to spin this situation. "Jake, you don't understand," she started, her voice shaking slightly. "It's not what you think. He's just a friend from work." "Just a friend," I interrupted, my voice rising. "You were all over him, Amanda. I have the video to prove it." I pulled out my phone, the recording of their interaction replaying in my mind. Like a cruel joke. "You think I'm stupid, that I wouldn't notice?" The facade crumbled as her betrayal became undeniable. Okay, I'll explain," she blurted out, her composure slipping. But you don't understand the pressure I've been under at work. I was lonely, Jake. Lonely. The word hung in the air like a foul stench. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lonely, so you decided to cheat. Was that your solution? My hands clenched into fists, a surge of emotions threatening to spill over. I didn't mean for it to happen, she pleaded, her voice becoming frantic. It just happened, we connected, and I didn't know how to stop it. I thought it was just a fling, something to fill the void. I thought I could handle it. I never wanted to hurt you. Her words collided with my sensibility, and I was left reeling. The excuses felt hollow, like echoes in a cavernous space, devoid of sincerity. I had spent countless nights wondering if her heart still belonged to me, only to hear it confirmed in this moment. I had been living with a stranger, someone who could betray the very essence of our relationship without a second thought. At that moment, I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could someone I loved so deeply betray me so completely? I needed a moment to collect my thoughts, to process the whirlwind of emotions sweeping through me. Don't act like you're the victim here, Amanda. You made your choice, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Please, Jake, I'm sorry. I'll end it, I promise. She begged, her eyes pleading. I'll do anything to make this right. Anything. I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. What does that even mean? You've already shattered my trust. How can I believe anything you say? The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, the realization of her actions crashing down on her like a tidal wave. I had always believed that love was a choice, a commitment. But standing there, I felt that love being stripped away piece by piece. I need time, I said finally, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. I can't process this right now. I need to figure out what I want. Jake, please don't say that, she cried, her desperation palpable. I love you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I turned away, not wanting to see the tears streaming down her cheeks. I felt a strange mix of sympathy and anger, both of which churned inside me like a storm. I needed distance to think, to reflect on everything that had just transpired. As I walked out of the room, I could hear her sobs in the background, and a part of me felt guilty for leaving her alone in her misery. But another part of me knew I had to put myself first for once. Amanda had chosen her path, and now it was time for me to choose mine. I retreated to the bedroom, my sanctuary now tainted by betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to catch my breath as I processed the enormity of what was happening. The emotional impact was overwhelming, and I had to make a decision. Would I try to salvage our marriage, or would I finally cut the cord and walk away? Sitting on the edge of our bed, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. I was lost in a fog of confusion and pain, grappling with the realization that the woman I thought I knew was a stranger. My heart ached with betrayal, but I also felt a flicker of something else, an ember of strength igniting inside me. This was my life, and I wouldn't let her lies define me. The confrontation had left me spinning, and I knew I needed time to think. As I sat there, I replayed our relationship in my mind. The laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams we had shared, they all felt tainted now, replaced by feelings of anger and betrayal. I thought of the way she had looked at me, the love that had once shone in her eyes now absent. It was like peeling back the layers of a facade, revealing the ugliness beneath. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing. I forced myself to go to work, but every interaction felt forced, and I found it difficult to focus. The moment anyone asked me how I was doing, I would smile and say, "Great," while feeling like I was dying. Inside, I went through the motions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living someone else's life. In the evenings, Amanda would come home and we'd share awkward dinners in silence. I could see how desperate she was to mend things, but every attempt felt insincere. She would try to hold my hand, lingering at the table, and I would pull away, feeling the emotional distance grow wider. I was scared to let her see how much she had hurt me. One night, I finally snapped. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone aimlessly when she brought up the idea of taking a weekend trip together. "I think we need to reconnect, Jake," she said, her voice dripping with hope. "A little getaway could help us clear our heads." "Reconnect," I repeated, bitterness lacing my words. "You think a weekend trip can erase what you did? You think we'll just magically forget that you were cheating on me?" Her expression fell, and I could see the pain reflected in her eyes. She opened her mouth to respond, but all that came out was a strangled noise. "I know I messed up. But I love you. I'll do anything to prove it to you," she pressed, desperation creeping into her tone. "You can't just wave a magic wand and expect everything to be okay." I exploded, unable to control the surge of emotions. "Do you even understand how much trust you've shattered? You think I can just forgive and forget?" Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt a pang of guilt. I knew I was being harsh, but the betrayal felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. I wasn't ready to forgive, and I didn't know if I ever would be. "I need space," I finally said, my voice softer but firm. "I need to figure out where I stand." The silence that followed was heavy. Amanda sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. I could see the weight of my words sinking in, and a part of me felt heartbroken for her. But I also felt a surge of clarity. I had to put myself first, and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. After that confrontation, I decided to take the weekend alone. I packed a bag and headed to a small cabin my family owned in the woods. The solitude felt liberating, allowing me to breathe and reflect away from the suffocating tension of our home. The first night was hard. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, the memories flooding in. I thought about how Amanda and I used to spend weekends together, laughing and enjoying each other's company. I missed that version of her, the one who made me feel loved and cherished. But I also realized that I couldn't bury my feelings or ignore the betrayal. The next day, I took a long hike in the surrounding woods, experiencing nature in its full glory. The crisp air filled my lungs, and I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in weeks. I found a clearing with an incredible view, and I sat there, contemplating my future. I thought about what I wanted, what I truly deserved. I had always believed in the sanctity of marriage, but I also knew that love shouldn't come with strings attached. I didn't want to live in a relationship where I had to constantly second-guess my partner's fidelity. By the end of the weekend, I had come to a decision. I couldn't continue down this path, hoping that Amanda would change or that time would heal the wounds. I needed to reclaim my life, my happiness, and I was ready to take that step. As I drove back home, my heart felt heavy, but it was also lighter in a way. I knew that the conversation I needed to have with Amanda would be difficult, but it was necessary. I was ready to confront the reality of our situation and make the choices that would ultimately lead to my healing. When I arrived home, the house felt eerily quiet. I could hear the faint sound of Amanda moving around in the kitchen, and my heart raced. I knew this was it, the moment I would lay everything on the line and finally take control of my life. It was time to end the cycle of lies and reclaim my peace. As I walked into the house, the familiar scent of Amanda's cooking filled the air, but it did little to comfort me. My heart raced as I approached the kitchen, my mind focused on the conversation that awaited us. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say, but the gravity of the moment still made my palms sweat. I wanted to be calm, collected, but I also knew that this was a turning point in our lives. Amanda turned around, a smile spreading across her face at the sight of me. "You're back," she exclaimed, her eyes brightening. But as soon as she saw my expression, her smile faltered. "How was the cabin?" "Let's talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. I gestured toward the living room, and she followed, her brow furrowed with concern. We settled into the couch, the space between us feeling heavier than ever. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "I've had a lot of time to think," I began, searching for the right words, "and I need to be honest about how I feel." "Jake, please," she interjected, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, but I can fix this. I promise I'll do everything to make it right." I raised my hand to stop her, needing her to listen. "Amanda, it's not that simple. Yes, I'm angry and hurt, but this isn't just about fixing things with a few apologies. You've broken my trust. And trust is something that's very hard to rebuild." Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of sympathy. I reminded myself that I wasn't here to hurt her. I was here to express my truth. "I can't move forward in this relationship while feeling like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder," I continued. "I deserve to be with someone who is committed to me, and right now, I don't feel like that person is you." Her breathing quickened, and I could see the realization settling in. "Are you saying you want to end things?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. I think it's for the best. I need to prioritize my own mental health and happiness. I can't keep living in this state of uncertainty and betrayal. Jake, please don't do this, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. I love you, we can work through this together. I know you say that, but I've seen what happened. I've seen how easily you allowed someone else into our lives. I can't just forget that. It's like you poisoned our relationship with your lies, and now I have to protect myself. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda sat there, her expression a mixture of shock and devastation. I felt a mix of guilt and relief wash over me. I had made my choice, but it didn't come without a cost. Is there anything I can do? She asked, her voice cracking. No, I replied softly. I've made my decision. I need distance to heal. I could see the pain etched across her face, her heart breaking in real time. But I knew that this was necessary for both of us. I stood up, feeling a weight lift slightly from my shoulders. I think it's best if we take some time apart, I said. I'll give you some time to find a place. I want to make this as easy as possible for us both. Amanda remained seated on the couch, her expression lost. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I turned to leave the room. I know it hurts, but I believe it's the right decision. I hope one day you can understand. As I walked away, I felt a mix of sadness and empowerment. It was hard to leave behind the memories we had shared, but I also felt a sense of freedom. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on myself. I spent time with friends, rediscovered hobbies I enjoyed, and even sought therapy to process the emotional turmoil. Each day felt like a step toward healing, and I tried to embrace the journey. But Amanda's absence was palpable. Our home felt different, almost eerie without her presence. I missed the laughter and warmth we once shared, but I knew I couldn't let that nostalgia cloud my judgment. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I received a text from Amanda. "Can we talk?" It read. My heart raced at the thought of seeing her again, but I knew I needed to stay strong. I replied, "I think it's best to give each other space for now." The silence that followed felt heavy, but I knew I was doing the right thing. I had made my choice, and I was determined to stick to it. I learned that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that ultimately lead to growth. I had taken a painful step forward, but in doing so, I realized that I was reclaiming my power. I was ready to move on, ready to heal, and ready to embrace whatever the future held for me. The following days turned into weeks, and I focused on rebuilding my life without Amanda. Each morning, I woke up with a mix of hope and trepidation. I had set the course for my future, but the weight of the past still lingered like a shadow. I found solace in therapy, where I spoke about my feelings of betrayal and confusion. My therapist reminded me that healing takes time and that it was okay to feel sadness over what was lost. I threw myself into work, using it as a distraction and a way to regain my sense of self. I started exercising more regularly, taking long runs through the park to clear my mind. It felt good to channel my energy into something constructive. I began to rediscover passions I had neglected during my marriage: reading, painting, and reconnecting with friends. Each small step felt like a victory, a reclaiming of the parts of me that had been overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. But no matter how much progress I made, I couldn't completely shake my thoughts of Amanda. I would occasionally scroll through my phone, checking social media, half expecting to see pictures of her moving on with her life. I had to remind myself that I was doing this for a reason. I had chosen to prioritize my well-being, and that choice had already begun to transform me. Then one afternoon, I got a surprise. I had just returned from a run when I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Amanda standing there, visibly shaken. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and she looked fragile, far removed from the confident woman I once knew. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hesitated, feeling a rush of emotions at the sight of her, but I nodded and stepped aside to let her in. We sat down in the living room, the air thick with unspoken words. "I've missed you, Jake," she began, her voice shaky. "I know I messed up and I can't change the past, but I'm really trying to be better. I'm in therapy now, too." I listened in silence, my heart torn between lingering feelings of love and the reality of what had happened. I appreciate that you're trying to work on yourself, Amanda, I said carefully, but that doesn't change what you did. I need to be honest with you, I'm still hurt. This isn't something I can just forget. I know, she replied, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted to hurt you. I was so blinded by my own issues that I didn't see how my actions were affecting you. I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. I believe you, but it's going to take time for me to heal. I can't just jump back into things like nothing happened. I understand, she said softly, wiping her tears. I just wanted the chance to show you that I can be better. I want to be better for myself, for you, for us. Her sincerity struck a chord, but I was cautious. You have to understand that trust is earned, not given. If we're to move forward, we need to take it slow. I need to prioritize my own healing before considering anything else. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she said, her voice resolute. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try. I nodded slowly, understanding that this conversation was just a small step in a long journey. I didn't know if we could repair what was broken, but I appreciated her willingness to make amends. As she left, I felt a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Maybe there was a chance for us to rebuild, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. I was determined to protect my heart while also allowing room for forgiveness. In the months that followed, we took things one step at a time. We began to meet regularly, sharing our thoughts and feelings in a way we had never done before. Amanda continued her therapy, and I focused on my own healing journey. It was tough, filled with moments of doubt and fear, but I could feel both of us growing in ways we hadn't anticipated. I learned the importance of vulnerability and honesty in any relationship. Our journey was a slow one, but it was filled with genuine efforts to understand one another. Trust was still building, brick by brick, but I began to see glimmers of the connection we once had. As I look back on this experience, I've realized that sometimes life's harshest lessons lead to profound growth. I learned the value of self-love, the necessity of boundaries, and the importance of communication. While the betrayal had shaken my foundation, it also taught me resilience. In the end, regardless of whether we ultimately stayed together or went our separate ways, I knew I was on a path toward healing. I had faced heartache head-on and emerged stronger. I was reclaiming my life, and that in itself felt like a victory. And for anyone reading this who might find themselves in a similar situation, my advice is simple: prioritize yourself. Healing takes time, and it's okay to put yourself first. You deserve to be in a relationship that honors your worth. Trust may be fragile, but with time and effort it can be rebuilt. Life goes on, and so do you.